So here's my 2017 Honda Ridgeline Black Edition. It does have some mild aftermarket modifications. I thought about washing this car for the video, but I decided that it kind of would defeat the purpose of explaining why this truck is actually more practical than maybe even a Toyota Tacoma. I do have aftermarket wheels on it, sitting on some Hankook Dynapro ATMs. There are some slight modifications to the factory accessory tonneau cover. As you can see, there's two bike hitch on the top. One of them's a fat bike and the other one is a regular mountain bike mount. Probably one of the most notable features on this truck is the swing-away gate. This makes it very easy to access cargo, and you get the trunk. Now for me, this is where the practicality comes in. I always wanted the capability of an SUV, but really the functionality of a truck. So the truck part of this, having the bed and the swing-away gate and even the traditional gate drop-down, is really nice. The trunk gives me that kind of an SUV or cargo capacity that most trucks lack or don't even offer at all. So that's where the truck component of this really plays in for me. Here you can see that the 2017 model has the shifter with the adaptive terrain control. I've used this multiple times during the winter. I find the snow mode very, very good. It actually makes it quite impossible for the truck to spin out with the all-wheel drive system. The infotainment system, on the other hand, is not one of my favorites. The infotainment system actually takes quite a while to load, and when I sync my Android Auto to it, sometimes it can be temperamental about syncing. I have used the truck bed audio a couple of times. I find it to be very good for when you're working outside and you're just doing general work. Overall, the navigation system is pretty good. I believe it's a Garmin-based system. Speaking towards the other applications, there are not really a lot of applications here, and likewise, you can't really expand much. I know that some people have found a way to, unlock some more potential with this system, but overall, the Android-based system doesn't lend itself to a lot of modifications, which is unfortunate. The info button is generally where I keep it because you can change the wallpaper. And so since I'm a mountain biker at heart, I have a nice picture of a mountain biker. And this is typically how I drive around. And a lot of people compliment that. And they're like, wow, that's pretty cool. I've never seen that before in a car or a truck for that matter. So that gets a lot of attention. The heated seats are pretty good, I would say. Not fantastic. Even on high, it doesn't really get you that deep warming sensation that a lot of other heated seats do. I find the heated mirrors pretty good. The auto climate control is pretty good, although this car, this car does suffer from the squeaking in the fan control box over here. So when you have it on auto climate and the fan spins, it kind of sounds like a mouse or a gerbil on a wheel. I believe the Honda Pilot also is a victim to this. So not horrible. The fix is probably more than what it's worth unless it's super annoying for you. Otherwise, the armrests are pretty nice, and the stitching and embroidery on the Black Edition is quite appealing. You can see it's black with this kind of deep red inlay, and then you get the Black Edition stitching. Center console is pretty roomy, I would say. Ample for storage. The cup holders are pretty nice. They're pretty basic, but they do a good job. So next I'll take you over to the driver's side. So here's the driver's side. As you can see, it's got analog gauges with a digital inlay in the middle. It doesn't give you a ton of information, but it gives you the basics. You're due for an oil change soon. And I do have the door open, so let's close the door real quick. It gives you tire pressure, which is pretty critical in the winter months. It does have a pretty cool feature where you can fill the air and it'll actually beep if you fill the air with the car running, indicating when it actually has achieved its optimal PSI. So that way you're not constantly having to check, fill, check, and repeat until you get to the proper PSI. You can just fill it until it beeps or honks, and then you know that you're there. Otherwise, the steering wheel controls are pretty good. The adaptive cruise control and lane keep assist is pretty good on highways, I would say. In the rural areas, when you're on backcountry roads, probably not as good. The Ego button, I have only used a couple times, and honestly, I find it to be just a kind of a dead pedal feeling, so that when you press on the gas really hard, it really doesn't give you that jolt. So it's kind of a muted feeling. Otherwise, everything else is pretty good as far as the Honda safety suite, as it were. Coming up to the mirrors, you can see here's the mirror. It does auto tint, as you would expect at a higher trim level. This model does come with the moonroof and the sliding rear window, which is pretty cool. That's what that is. And closing it. So let's go under the hood. Under the hood is the famous J-Series Honda engine. This has been in a number of vehicles, probably going back to the late 90s, I would say. And it's still around today. This is a AEM short ram intake. There's actually a reason why I did this, and it is to make it appeal more as a truck to me than it is, say, an SUV like the Honda Pilot, since these two are very similar in makeup. But taking a look at the back, you can see that the Honda Ridgeline has ample back seat capacity. I often keep the seats up because of the dog, but just to show you how simple they are to use. That's one seat and the other seat, so it's a 60-40 split. And likewise, you can just go like this and then fold it up. I do have some liners on the bottom of the floor, because I usually use this truck for more practical purposes. And the dog, you can see that this would play a very significant role in keeping the car cleaner. I do find that the back one is not as nice as the front one here, because this one's rubber and this one's plastic. But, that being said, it's still good. So what about this makes it really a truck more than an SUV? Well, for me, it's the capacity, the capability of it. SUVs often limit you, whereas trucks give you the capacity and the capability of hauling things, whether it be towing or, straight in-bed capacity. As you can see here, this truck, and it really is a truck, maybe ahead of its time, is really nice and capable. I'll show you I'll show you how an SUV would have a limitation on certain cargo capacity and awkward sizes, whereas this really doesn't have any limits besides, sheer gross weight, which every truck eventually maxes out. So if we were to talk about the drivability of this versus a normal truck. So when we were purchasing this truck, we decided to take a look at a couple of different trucks, like the Tacoma or the F-150 or maybe even the Ranger. But really it came down to what makes the most sense and what gives us the most comfort. So it gives us like 90% of a truck, but doesn't really sacrifice handling or comfort. So we'll just get on the gas here and I'll show you what it actually sounds like. one thing this truck does do that most trucks don't do is have a good ride. It's really hard to get a capable truck and a ride at the same time. Now this truck actually has the same platform as the Honda Pilot, so you can imagine that it's quite comfortable, but it's actually more comfortable than what you would believe. When you compare this to a normal truck, it's apples and oranges. I'll kind of put some rhyme to reason here why the cold air intake or the short ram intake is on this truck, because it actually makes it sound like a truck. And that was the one thing that this truck was lacking, was the sound of it. What better way to show the Ridgeline as a true truck than to take a moment to capture what is in the back of our Ridgeline right now, which is a brand new washing machine. Our washing machine recently went out, and we had to purchase a new one. Often you have costs associated with deliveries in a rural area like we live in. So a truck like this actually has more practical purpose than a lot of people give it credit for. Yes, it's not a traditional truck, but it fits our needs. Taking a quick moment to show the interior of the bed. It has multiple strap down points, which make it easy for you to haul items in of large or heavy capacity and secure them. As you can see here, straps are going up and over the box and down to the other anchor points. So there's plenty enough for this truck.